Welcome, 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 my Be Health Empowered family, to another episode of Excuse Me, Doctor. My name is Dr. Melissa Clark. Of course, please call me Dr. Mel. And we are delighted to be back here with you this week, doing what we do every week on Excuse Me, Doctor, which is bringing you the accurate health information that you need to make wise health choices, not just for yourself, not just for your family, but even for your community. So thanks for tuning on whatever platform you're catching us on. If it's your first time joining us and you're a newbie, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you're catching us on YouTube and if you're on Facebook with us, please hit that like button. We really, really appreciate you for it. And of course, we are here to get your questions answered. So please remember, as things pop up that we talk about during the show, go ahead and put your comment, put your question in the chat. We are going to get to it. And so now, in order to do what we do and have an amazing week in health, I have to welcome my co-host, Mr. Wayne Bruce. Hey, Wayne.
I'm here. I'm running behind. I'm sorry.
Hey,
I'm
but
sorry.
you're here. But you're
I'm
here.
sorry, but
And
I'm
of
here.
course, we are notably missing Lila tonight, but
We are.
she assures us she will be back very soon. But so all y'all Lila fans, just stay tuned. She'll be back.
Yeah, Lila's going to come back, but in the meantime, she's empowered me to speak for her. So everything I say tonight, blame on Lila. Because it's not my fault.
All righty then.
It's not.
Well, it was Father's Day yesterday. I want to make sure that we wish all the fathers a wonderful post-Father's Day. Make sure you catch our episode. We did a whole Father's Day episode last week, right?
We did.
Yeah.
And depending on when you watch the show, it could have been last month, but we did a whole Father's Day episode. So
this is true. But catch it, go back, catch. It was incredible. It was about men's mental health, how we can break generational trauma and support men and even being better fathers. So
yeah.
incredible episode.
We can always learn something. And I want to salute Lila said, I have not empowered Wayne to speak for me. Lila, please don't. I don't know what's gotten into her.
Disclaimer in the chat. The comments made by Wayne Bruce tonight in no way represent Lila Mays.
They have to. They have to represent. I mean, Lila, come on, man. Why are you going to embarrass me on
Well, it's even more important because we're shifting gears from talking about the brothers, which we did last week, to this week talking about the sisters and focusing on women. Because our guest tonight, her mission is all about empowering women to take charge of their health. Her name is Dr. Sharon Malone. She's written a book. We're going to hear all about it later.
She's incredible. She's incredible.
It's going to be a great episode. Y'all have to, phone a friend, text a friend, email a friend, DM a friend, I am a friend, whatever you got to do, get them to tune in right now because we are going to be having some grown woman talk when it comes to health.
And I will be in my grown woman mindset.
Channeling Lila, right?
I'll be in my grown woman. But see, here's where we get it twisted. Men need to be in these conversations.
Yes.
One, I mean, I was raised by women. Okay. Might seem different. I mean, I'm a little rough, but they were some rough women. But no, I'm raised by women. I'm around women. I care for women. So I think men as partners, right, need to have conversations to make sure that we have our partners here with us. If you in a male-female relationship, now we don't.
And well, not just partners, but also fathers, uncles, grandfathers, sons, who are caregivers for their moms. I mean, hey.
We need to know.
You need to know.
I was a caregiver for my mom. That's things you don't know about Wayne Bruce.
Wow. Little known facts.
I'm giving them
And a
to him
wonderful
slow,
one at
Dr.
that.
Mel. I have to give it to him slow, Dr. Mel.
I
They
know.
can't handle
I know.
this.
Well,
All right.
on that note, let us go to the weekly recap because we got some really important things to share tonight.
We do. Look, I'm excited. We had a whole episode with Dr. Virgie Ellison on medical debt and how to deal with it. So I'm excited. Y'all should go back and check it out. And so what's the news on medical debt, Dr. Mel?
So this is the deal. There's a new proposed rule in the Biden administration coming from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're trying to do is ban the reporting of medical debt on credit reports so that lenders cannot use it against you. It's estimated that it might boost people's credit scores by more than 20 points. And the thing is, the reason why they're pushing it forward is because research shows that medical bills on credit reports are often inaccurate and they don't really predict whether a person is going to pay off their other loans or not. And so it prevents companies from it also prevents companies from repossessing medical devices like wheelchairs and prosthetic limbs if you can't pay off your loan. I mean, could you imagine?
I didn't know that was a thing, Dr. Mel. I didn't know.
It's a thing, and it's a thing, and it needs to be prevented. That's yeah.
I mean, you can't take away a person's artificial limb. How do you do that?
Or their wheelchair, or their CPAP machine, or whatever medical equipment that they
Can you imagine the amount of snoring that's going to happen?
Correct. Well, this bill would help to prevent, this proposal rather would help to prevent those things from happening.
So, I'm sorry, Dr. Mel. The chat is blowing up. Somebody posted, "Child, they'll take your arm and your leg."
Yeah, if it's prosthetic, yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Potentially.
I'm sorry. It was funny.
So what should people do if they want to weigh in on this proposed rule?
Well, look, if you want to weigh in on it, you have to go to the CFPB website and provide a public comment through August the 12th. And we'll keep everyone posted on whether this is successful or not, right?
Yes, because it could make a huge difference for
and
people
that's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Exactly.
Right? Go to their website. Yep. It's the .gov website.
Right. Exactly.
So just look it up. We don't want anybody repossessing an arm, a leg, or a CPAP.
Or a wheelchair. Or anything.
Wheelchair. That's the worst. That's the worst. Okay, we're gonna move on.
Even a bed, even a medical bed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Been through the medical bed thing. So look, everything we hear about Florida man a lot. So now we got Florida moms involved. It's not the same, but I just want to kind of make it light, Dr. Mel.
So, well, thank you for teeing it up because there's this new law in Florida that's going to allow doctors to perform C-sections in what are called advanced birthing centers.
Wow.
Right. But C-sections are surgeries, and they do carry a small but real risk of life-threatening complications happening. And now you might say, well, they replace people's hips and knees and all like that in outpatient surgery centers. True.
Right.
But cesarean sections are a totally different thing. Any time you're talking about people giving birth, things can change on a dime, literally. And you really have to be in a hospital where there are all the resources and backup teams, the blood bank, all those ventilator equipment, all those things that might be needed if things suddenly go wrong. 98% of births go right, but that 2%, it's hard to predict who that's going to be, and you really need to have that backup situation ready to go.
And we've had a whole conversation, especially on Excuse Me, Doctor, about Black women and their childbearing and childbirth complications. And in America, in the United States, it's worse than any other countries, right?
Right. And yeah, those maternal health outcomes are worse, in America for everybody compared to peer nations. But Black women specifically have a 3 time higher complication and death rate than white women do. And Florida, specifically, where this
Mm-hmm.
bill has passed, got a grade of a D plus from
Wow.
a recent March of Dimes report because they have way too many sections and their infant
Mhm.
death rate is worse than the national anthem, national average, sorry. Um, and so, you know, it's really important, I think, to know if you're thinking about choosing one of these advanced birthing centers, how close is it to a hospital? What is their protocol? What is the time that it would take to transfer you? And I would actually, suggest that people avoid them altogether in terms of getting C-sections done there.
Mhm.
Fine if you're a healthy mom and you have a midwife and you're going to a midwife birthing center, especially if there are OBGYNs there, all that's great. But not getting surgery done there. Not a great
Wow.
idea.
Wow. It sounds like we should just avoid these outpatient advanced birthing centers altogether.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So look,
Absolutely.
we're coming to the end of spring. We've had heat waves all over the place. Uh Pollen, ragweed, every kind of weed is out of control for the allergy people with allergies. So,
Mhm.
you know, the home is becoming like full of just toxins. You open your window, you don't know what you're breathing in. You close your window, you don't know what the air conditioning unit is putting in. 4 ways to detox your home, Dr. Mel. What do you have?
So okay, so this is it. So your home can be the air quality in your home can be up to 5 times worse than the outdoor air quality, right? Um, And, we might have heard about, gas stoves making the air quality worse, but it's more than just that. There are chemicals in the products in our house, the paint, hair, mold, pollen, bacteria, viruses, insects, smoke and ash from burning candles and fireplace, animal fur and dander. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so those are some of the things that are contributing to worse air quality in the house.
That can't be good for your health. What's the deal with the gas stoves?
So with the gas stoves, they emit certain chemicals that it's really important to ventilate effectively and use your range hood, um,
Mhm.
blower to get some of um, those toxins out of your house because they're not great for people with asthma and other respiratory conditions. The poor air quality also affects people with heart disease, and it can be associated with worsening heart disease, worsening cognitive defects, and even cancer. And
So
people that are most vulnerable are kids, older people, people in poorer health. The WHO estimates that almost 4 million people die every year from illnesses attributed to harmful indoor air quality.
and I heard that the homes in poor neighborhoods are often exposed to higher levels of those pollutants, right?
Yep.
So how should we be spring cleaning? I mean, I've been leaving my shoes at the door so I don't track stuff through. You know, that's just my personal thing.
Yeah. Well, that's a really important way to improve indoor air quality.
Hmm.
But some of these are really obvious, cleaning, right? So vacuuming your floors and upholstery regularly with a machine that uses a HEPA filter. Um, and, not just sweeping, but using a wet mop because that just, sweeping just redistributes the dust, right?
Hmm.
Open the windows and ventilate, really important. I talked about the range hood and opening the windows, also using your fan in the bathroom as well. And then the last one is using an air purifier, also that has a HEPA filter because it can remove, really, really small, tiny particles and many dust mites and other allergens. So those are the ways really to do some spring cleaning, get your indoor air quality better, and have better health as a result.
Can't wait to do that. I can't wait to clean, Dr. Mel. You made me want to clean.
All right, that's great. There are probably gonna be people calling you since you're ready to clean. Have you go clean their house too?
No,
So
no, no, no. Just my house.
okay,
Don't
I
y'all
just
call me trying to get me to clean your
you
house.
might want to make that clear. Okay, good. Well, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Dr.
We
Mel.
we're gonna see you back in a little bit
I'll
because
be
we are
back to
going
speak for
to.
Lila later on.
Good luck with that. But we are really delighted to be talking tonight about grown women's health, thriving and shining, and welcoming friend of the show, Dr. Sharon Malone. She's the CMO of Alloy Women's Health. She has more than 30 years of practice as an OBGYN physician. And she has this incredible new book called Grown Woman Talk, Your Guide to Getting and Staying Healthy. And it's all about getting the best health care, how to prioritize your own health as a woman as you go through various stages of your life. And we're going to have a really frank discussion tonight. I'm so excited to welcome you, Dr. Malone.
Thank you for having me back.
Absolutely. So, well, let's start off. And I really like to get the backstory on why people write books and are passionate about certain topics. So, what inspired you to write Grown Woman Talk? And what's really the message that you're trying to get across to women through the book?
You know what? If you had asked me 5 years ago, would I be writing a book? I would have said, "Are you crazy? No, I'm not writing a book. I'm working." Um, but you just never know where things are going to take you. And honestly, I was one of those people that was part of the great COVID resignation. I sort of had those few months to be home, and when you sit still, you get to think for a moment, and that's something, honestly, in my career, I'd never really had a chance to do. You go to work, you put one foot in front of the other, and you do that thing. So, but when I got home, I realized, I said, I didn't know what the next chapter of my life was going to be, but I knew that the one that I was currently in was done.
Mm,
So when I left my practice after almost 30 years, um, I stopped. I don't regret that one single bit. It opened up other doors that I didn't even know there were possibilities. But,
right.
I thought about all of this 30, I had 30 plus years of experience. And I'm sure you know this feeling too, Dr. Mel, that when you are the only doctor in your family, you're the only doctor in your friend group. I spend a lot of time outside my workday really navigating and negotiating healthcare for my friends and family. And,
Yep.
I said to myself, now these are smart people with insurance. They are more than capable of understanding. And if there is that much confusion amongst women and not knowing what to do and not knowing just the ins and outs of how to navigate this crazy medical system that you and I have been in for a long time, then I said, you know what, maybe I will do that. I will write a book that really starts at the beginning and explains
Right.
to them some of the things, the ins and outs that you and I know about how to navigate, just simple things. How do you even pick a
Mhm.
doctor? What's
Right.
important? What's not? What's important about your family history? So it's a compilation of practical advice, common sense. It's some storytelling. And I actually, when I was organizing the book, I thought about it this way. You know that book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, that everybody
Mhm.
has on the shelf?
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
I wanted this book to be what to expect if you expect to live beyond 40. You know,
Mhm.
what are the
Okay.
kinds of things? Because nobody
Yes.
tells you
As
this,
a woman. Yeah.
as a woman, nobody
Yeah.
tells you. And
Exactly.
so I said, well, I'm gonna tell you a few things. So it's such that when you go in to your doctor's office, you know how to be the best patient you can be, because you
Mhm.
have to know how to show up so you can get what you need to get from this interaction,
Right.
because they've changed dramatically
Right.
in the past
Yeah.
20, 25 years.
Yes, and I definitely, yeah, I am that person for my friends and family. I know exactly what you mean. And I actually talk consider it. I often say, don't be a patient because you got
Right.
to advocate for yourself. So And so on that same note, like, what are some of the common barriers that women face when navigating the healthcare system?
I think not coming into the situation with just the baseline level of knowledge, and again, just how the system works,
Mhm.
um, people don't really understand, there's this, you would think that now that we have electronic medical records, well, it would not be an unreasonable assumption to think that we have an electronic medical record. Well, other doctors can access it. If I need my
Mhm.
records and I'm seeing another doctor, well, why doesn't my doctor just email my record over there?
Why
You know,
not? Right.
because if you have doctors that are not within the same healthcare system, if you are,
Mhm.
MedStar versus being in Johns Hopkins, those systems do not talk to each other. And so you show up as you go to your next doctor's appointment, or you've been in the emergency room and you go to see your doctor and you get there and you're like, well, why don't you have my records? People don't realize that that's really their responsibility to bring those records with them. And it's so much lost time and productivity, and patients are mad
Mhm.
and it's inefficient. And, we know the system as it stands right now is horribly inefficient. And when you add to that, we are living in a world where we don't have doctors that we're going to have for 25 or 30 years. I lived in one
Mm.
place here in DC, and I had patients that I saw through high school, college, childbirth,
Right.
and menopause, all of that, all sitting still in one place. But we live in a very much changed healthcare environment. You might
Yeah.
not, your doctor, you might change a job, you get new insurance. You might keep the same job and your employer will change the insurer. And
Right,
you have
right.
to constantly get a new team of doctors. And if you don't have the luxury of having someone who knows you, then you have to say, what is the common denominator in all of these situations?
Mhm.
And the common denominator is you. So this is your opportunity to be your best caregiver. And you have to know
Mhm.
how to show up, and you have to know how to manage things. But this is the good news, because I think that women need to understand that this isn't gloom and doom. It's doable, but you need
Yeah.
to understand who's in charge. And it is not your
Right.
doctor anymore. You're in charge. And to be able to exercise all that newfound power that you've gotten, then you need to know what to do with it and how to exercise it.
Right. And I also say too, one of the challenges I think as women too, especially if the dynamic is maybe perhaps with a male doctor, there's also that piece of making yourself be heard. So not
Right.
only having the attitude that you're in charge, but also making sure that your story gets heard and that you tell
Right.
it in a way that people can understand. Um, so effective communication with healthcare providers is really crucial. What are the tips that you provided in your book for women to advocate for themselves during their medical appointments?
Well, we start at the beginning, and the beginning is give you some tips on how to create your own medical team.
Mhm.
What's important about a provider? How do you assemble this team? And I think that we go about it a lot of times I won't say the wrong way, but we'll say not the most efficient way. You say,
Mhm.
we talk to each other, we have word of mouth. We said, who do you go to? You go to this doctor, you have this primary care doctor, but you want the best endocrinologist or the best cardiologist. And these doctors are often in different healthcare systems and don't talk to each other. They don't know
Right.
each other. And so it makes assembling your team problematic because, again, there's no communication from one doctor to the other like we used to do in the old days. You just pick up the phone and call somebody. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
So, it's just simple things like, and I use this adage a lot. I said, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Sometimes you need a good primary care doctor. Let them refer you to the endocrinologist or the cardiologist
Mhm.
that they know, because that's going to be much more effective for you if the doctors are talking to people that they know and people who
Right.
are within the same healthcare system. So, and that is also important because you will save some money and some time because
Mhm.
you're not have doctors that are outside of your network, because that's a
Right.
very expensive proposition for most people to go out of network for. And sometimes you have to. But if you do, make sure that you're going out of network for a very good reason, not just because you were picking a particular doctor, because, we pay too much for our healthcare right now. And to have paid for your insurance and then have to pay again is, is problematic for most people. So I talk about stuff like that. I talk about, the things that you have to know about yourself, the things that you need to amass about your medical history. And there are so many times when people don't even know their own history. It's like, oh, you had surgery. Well, what did they do? Oh, well, I think I had an ovary out. Which one, the right or left? I don't know. It's that kind of thing where we have really paid attention, because again, the assumption is, well, my doctor knows. It's in the record, in the chart. And that's sort of not how we can navigate now. And the other thing that I talk about that I think is really important is to tell patients how to be a good storyteller, because you don't think about it necessarily, but every time you're in front of a doctor, be it in the emergency room or be it in a doctor's office somewhere, you are telling your story. So you've got to be really clear about what your story is, because that's the only way that they're going to be able to put the pieces together and sort of craft an outcome that's going to be best for you. If you're telling a disjointed story that's inaccurate, then you're not going to get your best results. So that's why I said doing a little bit of homework on the front end. So you know what medications you're on, what dose, how long you've been on them, what surgeries you've had and what your family history is. And that's all, like I said, you don't think about it because we have lived in a world where you thought that was your doctor's job to keep your history. And I'm telling you, it's your job to keep your history.
Right. And it's even if you have to gather up all your pill bottles, you don't have to keep everything in your head. Gather up all your pill bottles, or as you have symptoms, write them down. Take an hour or so before you get to the doctor's appointment, write everything down so that, you have it all straight. And also, we have these patient portals where we can go back a little ways and find out our medicines and the surgeries we had. So now we do thankfully have some ways to help keep that straight.
Right.
Your book covers a bunch of topics, but one of my ones that I know people are going to want to hear about is chapter 5, which is entitled Control, which, I got to shout out to Janet Jackson. So it talks about taming the triple threat: chronic stress, weight gain, and diabetes. And one of the main points you make is how we handle chronic stress and how that relates to our overall health, our weight, and our risk of major diseases like diabetes. So can you talk a little bit more about the connection between how we're handling chronic stress, and how we can better do that?
Right. Well, the reason I lumped those all together, because, and for those viewers who don't really know how the book is organized, I talk about the logistics in the front part of the book. And then as I get into the midsection, I talk about, as I said, this is going to be your guide for what to look out when you turn, 40 and above. So we talk about cardiovascular disease. We talk about the triple threat, which is chronic stress, diabetes, and weight gain. And the reason why I put those three things together is because they're all interrelated. Chronic stress is something that is very, very deleterious to your health, because we don't really think about it that way. But we know, how there's certain things that it, but you don't know why you know it, because a lot of things that I tell in this book are their family stories, because I've got much older brothers and sisters, and my mother was certainly of 2 generations beyond me. And you think about the language that we use, and we say things like, she worried herself to death, or someone, or she's worried sick.
Right. Sick with worry. Yep.
You know that. And you know that it's possible that what your stress level in your life has an effect, not just on your mental health, but it has it on your physical health. And the thing about chronic stress, which makes it so terrible for you physically and emotionally, is because you are constantly activating all the systems in your body that would be helpful in a situation if you're trying to run from a burning building, but they're not helpful when you're just sitting at your desk every day. You're chronically activated. That means your blood pressure's up. That means your insulin level is up. That means you are just walking around constantly in that state, which is not good for you. And chronic stress, and this is something that I write specifically about Black women. There's a study called the Study of Women Across the Nation, and they just sort of 25 years followed a group of women from premenopause, perimenopause, and through menopause, and just asking questions, what is your life like? And then we, do some measurements along the way. And what they find is that Black women have more objective findings of chronic stress, sleeplessness, weight gain, hypertension, but the
cortisol levels, maybe.
Yeah, cortisol levels are up. And the funny thing about it is that, but when you ask them subjectively, are you stressed, or how is your sleep? Their answers are no, I'm good. And here's the problem, right? We have gotten used to we normalize that's how we feel, and all these
feeling
things.
bad is normal.
Feeling bad is normal. Feeling bad is what's supposed to happen as you get older. I'm tired. Fatigue is not normal, and if you are not getting enough sleep, you will be fatigued. And the reason why they're all go together, all right, so you're chronically stressed. Whatever you're worrying about, be it financial worries, be it about your children, your marriage, your job, life throws a lot of things at you. You're not going to sleep well. You don't sleep well, you're going to be chronically fatigued. If you're chronically fatigued the next day, guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to go run a half marathon. You're not going to go to the gym. You just get used to this sense of feeling bad. And if you don't do these things, well, then guess what happens? Weight gain happens. When we are chronically fatigued, when you don't sleep well and you're fatigued the next day, you make bad choices. You make bad choices as it pertains to food, to alcohol, to drugs, to whatever it is that you need to self-soothe, right? You self-soothe, and that's how we cope with it, which again, now, the more weight you gain, the worse you feel, the more stressed you are, your blood pressure's up, now your blood sugar's up. So all of that, we've got to figure out a way to sort of untangle that sort of that ball that we have of all these things, and they all feed on each other. And if you know that, and we all know stress is not something that we get to choose about what the stressors are in our life. It comes at you how it comes at you. But we do get to choose how we deal with that stress. We do get to decide when and if we need help. Sometimes it might be you need the help of a mental health professional. Sometimes whether you need to meditate or pray or whatever, but don't live with that stress, because it takes an enormous toll on you, not just in the here and now, but years down the road with your health.
Yeah, absolutely. And whatever you do, I often say, do it every day, because the stressors are there every day. So you have to have a practice to address the stress, right?
Exactly.
Now this was one of my favorite ones when it comes to weight gain after 40, right? Which I'm sure a lot of people listening can identify with that. You mentioned one of the main causes is, drum roll, just breathing.
That's true. It is true.
But in all seriousness, what are some of the other causes? And especially if you could comment for women on what role does menopause play?
All right. There is a normal sort of change in your metabolism, between 40 and 50, and every woman can relate to that. I would say 90% of us do not weigh at 50 what we weighed at 30. Now, did you drastically change your eating habits? Probably not. So there is sort of a natural slowdown in your metabolism as you age that just comes with the territory. It's worse in that decade between about 40 and 50, because that is when most women are also transitioning with menopause. So you're going from being perimenopausal, which is that for Black women can be as early as a decade before you've had your last period. So for women who are thinking, oh, menopause, that comes in my 50s. No, well, the symptoms and all of the sort of metabolic changes and hormonal changes actually will start in your early 40s for most women, and sometimes even in your late 30s. So menopause has this effect. For those who say, as your hormones change, again, it gets back to this sleeplessness, because if you're having lots of hot flashes and night sweats, you can't sleep. And remember, I told you that increases your stress level, cortisol level, makes you insulin levels, makes you hungry. And then again, you're sort of into that cycle. So in addition to whatever just normal aging changes that will happen, then you add to this menopause and sleeplessness and stress factors, and you eat more, exercise less, you're going to gain weight. So in that decade between about 40 and 50, women will gain, if you're good, 10 to 15 pounds. If not so good, it can be 20. I've seen it be just dramatic.
20 to 40. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so should we be using or considering hormonal therapy in menopause for that reason?
I think that we should be considering hormonal therapy, not just for the weight gain, because there's that, but I wouldn't recommend it for that purpose. But I would recommend it, we back up a couple of phases, because as I said, what is the problem? If the hot flashes are causing the problem, and they're making you wake up at night, be fatigued, then yes, let's treat those hot flashes, because there is no good side. There's no upside of not treating them. And that's the one thing that I really want women to understand. You treat them because even if, let's just say you are one of those lucky 5% of people that can make it through 40 and 50 without gaining any weight whatsoever. What menopause does for you as you make this transition, your body composition changes. So even though you might be weight neutral, you know what happens? You lose muscle and gain fat. And every woman can understand this, because you gain, and when you gain that fat, you gain it in your midsection. That is what these hormones can do for you in terms of how it wreaks havoc on your weight. And we all know that gaining weight around your midsection also puts you at risk for
For heart
cardiovascular disease and
problems,
type 2
sure.
diabetes. So yes, when I say, the one thing that the message that I want to get across to women, and to Black women in particular, is that if you are symptomatic, you should take hormones if you do not have the contraindications for them. And they're few.
And what are
If you
those?
don't have cancer, if you don't have breast cancer or uterine cancer, which are estrogen dependent cancers, those are the only two that are contraindicated. If you personally have not had a heart attack or stroke, if you don't have active liver disease, or you've not had a blood clot, a pulmonary embolus in that case, those are the only times that you can't. For everyone else, it is a discussion, and that should be on the table. And having a family history of breast cancer is not a contraindication. More people take themselves out of that conversation because they think they can't have it. And let me just say that if I tell you that Black women have a longer transition period, so this period during which you're having symptoms can go on for a decade, and then even years after you've had your last period, that's a lot of time to feel bad and to feel chronically fatigued and terrible. And your quality of life matters. And brain fog, there's the other thing that happens during perimenopause.
Right. Well, I want to make sure, because it's almost time to bring the audience back in with their questions. I want to get in the question about Alzheimer's. I want to move because there is some evidence that, these hormonal changes relate to our risk of Alzheimer's. Women are more, twice as more likely to get, or a higher risk, I should say, to get
Twice.
Alzheimer's
It's
compared to
twice.
men. And yes, and Black women are twice higher risk compared to white women for getting Alzheimer's. So, very important topic. What is the evidence that, there is some relationship to this sudden drop in estrogen levels that we experience in menopause and the onset of Alzheimer's later in life?
Well, I'll just tell you what the observational data shows. And what we do know is this: for women who have either an early menopause, and early menopause means you have had your last period at 45, between 40 and 45, then that's an early menopause. or for women who've had what we call a premature menopause. And there are some women who have had their last period before age 40. So, and we know for those women that have very early and premature menopause, those women are at higher risk for Alzheimer's disease and cardiovascular disease. Well, because they've got on average maybe 10, 15 years of being estrogen deficient longer than the average woman who goes through menopause. So that's where we're thinking about what's the link between estrogen and Alzheimer's. But there is some very interesting data out of Weill Cornell in New York, Dr. Lisa Mosconi, and she has written a book called The Menopause Brain. And what she has done is she has objectively shown pictures. She has done PET scans, which are these just, very sophisticated scans of women's brains. And she takes pictures of your brain of women pre-menopause, the same woman in perimenopause, and that same woman post-menopause. And you can actually look at the pictures and you see that not only does the structure of women's brains change, but the metabolic activity of their brains change. And it happens in the areas that are most responsible for what? Mood, so there's some shrinkage of the brain. There is also the area that is responsible for temperature regulation, which is why we get hot flashes. The brain is extremely sensitive to estrogen levels. And that's something that we think of estrogen as being just a below the waist hormone. No, it affects every organ in women's bodies: skin, hair, your metabolism, sexual function, and most importantly, your brain. And if you have a brain that really is starved of estrogen, it physically looks different as you go through those phases of life. And that's why we think that there is that link between lack of estrogen and combine that with the fact that women who have early menopause tend to have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's as they age.
Wow. Wow. Hey, we have covered a lot in a short period of time. I had a ton more questions, but I got to bring in the audience. I got to bring in Wayne to bring us those audience questions because I know that they're out there in the chat. So, Wayne, what you got?
They are out here in the chat, and I'm representing all women today, not just Lila. I just want you guys to know I'm not taking any shorts on this issue. But let me go. Let me go.
Jump right in with your representation.
Let me go and address. We had Kendra Hayes in the chat put, what is a natural remedy for menopause?
All right, I'm going to say this for you. There are certain, and I go through these in my book, almost at the end of the chapter. We talk about the same things because I'm going to give you 5 things, exercise, eat a diet, healthy diet of whole foods, try to minimize the processed foods. And again, we're not the food Nazis. So, do the best you can in terms of eating whole unprocessed foods. And it's really an interesting way of thinking about it. And I hadn't really thought about this way. Somebody says, well, what's unprocessed foods? And it's like, foods, if they don't have a label on it, then it's a whole food. An apple is an apple. It doesn't have to put a label on there to say what's in the apple. That's what it is. So as many of those foods as you can incorporate into your diet. Yes, get a good night's sleep. Huge, in terms of, again, that fatigue factor in terms of how you're going to navigate. Exercise, please exercise. Cut down on alcohol, to fewer than 7 drinks a week. No, less is always better when it comes to alcohol consumption. Don't smoke. Those are things that you do, whether we're talking about decreasing your risk of heart disease, of Alzheimer's, of cancer, all
Diabetes.
that goes without saying. But when it comes to actual treatment of menopausal symptoms, such as hot flashes, mood swings, sleeplessness, that kind of thing, if you've done all those things and you are still bothered, then there is nothing that works better than hormone therapy. I'm going to say that again. Nothing is more effective than hormone therapy. And that's what I think is confusing for a lot of women, because the marketplace has really awakened and they found out, wow, menopausal women are looking for stuff, because we're miserable, right? And there are a lot of people out there that will sell you a lot of stuff, supplements, herbs, vitamins, voodoo charms, all that kind of stuff. And they're just taking your money because there is really very, very little data on these quote unquote natural supplements that are out there. So I say buyer beware on those. Yeah, take a multivitamin, take some calcium, but they are not treating. You should not take supplements with the thought that you are treating your symptoms. That's for hormone therapy.
Okay. That's a great answer. We have another question from Therese Page. Do menopause meds cause cancer?
Okay, I'm so glad. That's my favorite question, because
good question, Therese.
That's the most common reason why women tend to avoid hormone therapy. It's because there is this link, this indelible link in their minds that hormone therapy causes breast cancer. Let me say this, it doesn't. Okay. And we won't go into the whole, you can read my book and read about the Women's Health Initiative, which is a study that put that in your mind. But here is something that I think is really important, and particularly for Black women, because I'm gonna back you up a minute. No one has more hysterectomies than Black women, because of a lot of reasons. We got fibroids, we got this, you get to be 40 years old and perimenopausal and fibroids and bleeding, a hysterectomy. That's changing a little bit now because we have other alternative therapies for that. But still, by and large, Black women have, considerably more hysterectomies than white women do. Well, if you have had a hysterectomy and you are taking hormone therapy for treatment of your menopausal symptoms, watch this. That same study that told you the terrible thing, told terrible things about it's going to increase your risk of breast cancer. That's not even true, but that's for women who took estrogen and a synthetic progestin. For women who've had hysterectomies, and they can take estrogen only, because you don't need to take the progestin if you don't have a uterus. You can just take estrogen because that's the active ingredient that's helping your symptoms. That same study showed that for women who have had hysterectomies, not only, and they have 20 years of follow-up data on this, the women who took estrogen only have a 23% decrease in the risk of developing breast cancer and a 40% decrease in the risk of dying from breast cancer. Wow. So follow this with me. If estrogen caused breast cancer, how could that possibly be? No. So, but even in the area where we're talking about the study that said there was a slight increase in the risk of breast cancer, there's formulations of estrogen that really we don't use as commonly anymore. We use what are called bioidentical estrogens, which are the same estrogen as your body makes. And we also use the same progestin or progesterone that your body makes. So we're not using the synthetics so much anymore. And they're not terrible, but we have moved away from that. So we have different ways to give estrogen, more of the bioidentical, less of the synthetic types that we did before. But even if you have a uterus, the risk is so small. And let me put this in perspective. Even if you took estrogen and you got breast cancer, your risk of dying if you take estrogen is no worse than if you didn't take it. So we have to think about more things like cardiovascular disease, because we do know that women have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease after menopause, and taking hormone therapy decreases your risk of cardiovascular disease by 30 to 50%. And in any given year, more women die of cardiovascular disease by orders of magnitude greater. Anywhere from 2 to 7 times more women in each decade will die of heart disease than die of breast cancer. And when you think of it that way, we're very afraid of breast cancer, but we're not afraid of cardiovascular disease. And way more women die. And as a matter of fact, more women who have breast cancer die of cardiovascular disease than die of their breast cancer. So put that in the back
Yeah.
burner about,
Right.
that if that's the reason why, or you're thinking you can't have it because your mother had it or your sister had it. And I've had two sisters with breast cancer. I have a very breast cancer laden family, and I take hormones because I realize that every medication that you take has some risks, it has some benefits. And as long as the benefits for you outweigh the risks, which are
Right.
small and manageable, then yes, you can take hormone therapy. And I think
So
that Black
I want to
women
make
So
sure that
should.
we have time for another question.
Yeah.
I just want y'all to realize that that's like giving LeBron the basketball and asking him to make a free throw. She is a menopause expert. She can go on for hours about menopause.
I can't.
But
I can't.
don't don't play with her.
yeah.
You know.
So
So
what
let
else?
let,
What
let me
else
get
we
a
have
few
out
more
there?
in. We're in the lightning round. So let me get
I'll
a.
make my answer shorter. I
We're,
promise.
we're in the
Okay.
lightning round. So I'm going to get a few more in. And now, since you brought in this whole, since that question was asked, there's a whole slew of things. So let me get to this first question. Terry Solomon asks, how do you get hormone therapy?
Oh, you see,
Question.
well, you can go to your doctor. Your gynecologist is generally the person who is most qualified to do hormones. But a lot of them don't even know how to prescribe hormones. And this is almost a setup here. And if you cannot find a doctor who either knows what they're doing or knows how to prescribe, or a lot of doctors will say, you can't have it. And you're like, please, then go to myalloy.com. That's why I'm the chief medical advisor there, because I help them develop protocols. And it is specifically for women who cannot find a doctor who knows how to prescribe. Or there are so many doctors that will actively waive you off hormones. That just tells you that they haven't read anything in 20 years.
Wow. There you have it, folks. So next question comes from our West Coast producer. We don't want to leave her out. Rhoda Lawrence asks, is there a link between hypoactive thyroid and cardiovascular disease?
Mm, I don't know, Dr. Mel, is there?
Yes,
Probably.
yeah.
Yeah.
So with low thyroid, especially if it goes untreated, you're at
Yeah.
risk for heart failure as well as potential heart attacks or what
Right.
you've heard cardiovascular disease. So that's all the more reason to get it treated. And Dr. Malone mentioned, fatigue is not normal. We get used to it being our new normal. But if you are unusually fatigued, you should go to a doctor and ask them to evaluate it because there are many,
Right.
many causes. Low thyroid is one of them
And
that you need to be aware of, and it's treatable. And so, hey, why not get it checked out, get a diagnosis because many of
right.
those diagnoses are treatable.
Right.
Hmm.
And a lot of times just on your routine physical, that thyroid screen will be part of your routine physical. So they will tell you whether you have
Mhm.
underactive thyroid or not. And it's the same concept as we talk about with hormone therapy. If you were underactive thyroid, of course we would treat you for that. So think of menopause as being the same thing. You do not have
Mhm.
estrogen. So we are replacing what your body no longer makes naturally.
I want to throw a question in there. What about testosterone? I hear a
Mhm.
lot of women getting on testosterone and testosterone pellets. And
Yeah.
what is your take on that?
I think that there is a lot of, again, there's a lot of evidence and data out there. Again, observational, no studies, because there is no
Mhm.
FDA approved preparation for testosterone for women in this country. So we're finding we as women actually make more testosterone over our lifetime than we make estrogen, because we have three hormones: it's estrogen, it's testosterone, and progesterone. So yes, it does have a role in muscle and maintaining muscle, and some people said it makes them feel more energetic. It has a
I
role
heard
in sexual,
libido.
yeah,
Right.
libido and sexual
Mhm.
function and how you, but for women, it's way complicated because you can't just even look at a number and say yes or no. But for some women, they swear by it. And I say this: always start with estrogen first, and then if you are still having problems, and particularly libido related, then add testosterone. I'm not a fan of pellets. And the reason why I'm not a fan of pellets, because you can get testosterone. That's one of the few things that really has to be compounded for women, because there is no preparation for us. You can use the preparations that are for men, but you have to titrate it. You can only have, our dose is 1/10 of that men have. And that's hard to do when you're trying to mete out a little bit of, a male preparation. So sometimes you might have to get that compounded for women. But
got it. Thank you.
But the pellets, no, because you don't know, somebody's making that pellet up and you don't really know what's in it. Your pellet is only as good as the compounder you got it from. So if you put a pellet in, can't take it back. Sorry. So if you're growing whiskers and and your voice is deep, can't get that pellet out of there. But at the very least, if you're using a cream or something like that, you can just stop.
Yeah,
you stop.
Yeah, you can wipe it off.
I think we have a second viral moment from Dr. Malone.
First, if you're growing whiskers, you can't take that pellet out.
Can't take that pellet out.
If you're ready take it back. Join the temptations, if you need to be in male
there you go.
Position,
there we go. So
not Dr. Mel. We're talking about temptation Mel.
Right.
You be singing in that part of the choir.
Oh, what a white Christmas. Anyway, but so we got a few more. We're in lightning round. I don't want to take up time. Somebody asked in the chat that where is it? Bioidentical isn't synthetic, and that's a question.
Okay, yes. All hormones are synthetic, and let me just say what that means. It just means it's man-made. There is no natural source that we can go to and pluck out some estrogen. You can get it out of pregnant women's urine, which is what they used to do. I don't recommend it. Okay, so we make it. All it means, bioidentical means that if you just drew it on a chalkboard, it would have the exact same chemical structure as what your bodies make, but it's made. There's only one natural source that comes from nature, and that's Premarin. And guess where that comes from? Pregnant mare's urine. It is not bioidentical, but it is most certainly natural. And once women realize that that's where Premarin comes from, they kind of go, no, thank you. I'll take the man-made version.
Okay. I wish we had like 2 hours for this, and I could immerse myself in trying to help along this conversation, but we're out of time, Dr. Mel.
Wow. Well, we covered a whole lot in a short amount of time. Dr. Malone, as always, you are a wealth of knowledge. Thanks so much for sharing with us. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows to go out and get a copy of Grown Woman Talk. It is available now, right? In bookstores, on Amazon.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
There it is. Wait a minute. Oh, there we go. Grown Woman Talk.
Yep. Your guide to getting and staying healthy. So thank you so much for being here. Again, thank you, Mr. Wayne Bruce, for channeling the voice of women tonight. My fabulous co-host and producer, and you, my Be Health Empowered family. Thank you so much for tuning in and for the wonderful questions. And remember, until I see you again, be wise, be well, and be health empowered. Thanks for joining.